Okay, you have to hear about this. It's like something out of science fiction, but it's real.
Oh, you got me hooked already. What is it?
It's AI, but for animation. Like, imagine if you could just snap your fingers and all the boring parts, like coloring, would just, poof, be done.
Whoa, you're speaking my language. I hate coloring.
Well, get this. We're diving into this research paper, AniDoc, Animation Creation Made Easier. And it's basically showing how they're training AI to be like a super-powered animation colorist.
I am so in. Let's do this. So where do we even start with something like that?
So the paper starts off by, talking about the whole animation workflow, right? Character design, keyframes, all that. But then it gets to the real killer, in-betweening and coloring.
Yeah, frame by hand. Ugh, the worst.
Right. It's a total nightmare, and it takes forever. The paper actually says it's one of the biggest roadblocks to creating more animation. It just takes so much time and money.
Makes sense. So is that where this AniDoc thing comes in?
Bingo. It's all about automating the coloring process, but, and this is the crazy part, it doesn't just like randomly slap color on.
Hold up. You're telling me it actually understands the character designs?
Yeah, it's wild. Like, it can accurately color sketches, even if the pose is totally different from the original design. They actually show some examples in the paper, figure 1, I think. And you can see how it takes these super rough sketches, and the colors are still perfect.
Color me impressed. That's some next level stuff. But how does it even work?
Brace yourself for some tech jargon, because it uses something called a video diffusion model.
Ooh, diffusion models. I've heard about those. They're pretty hot in the AI world right now.
They are.
Yeah.
But for our listeners who might not be AI experts, could you give us a quick rundown? Like, what's the basic idea?
Okay, so imagine you've got a super blurry photo, right? And you slowly bring it into focus, like magic. That's kind of what these diffusion models do. They learn by basically messing up images and videos, adding and removing all this noise, and then reversing the process.
So it's like they learn how to color by first learning how to uncolor.
Exactly. And by training on tons and tons of data, they start to understand how visuals work, so they can create realistic stuff from scratch.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. So AniDoc uses this diffusion model to, like, learn how to color the way an actual animator would.
You got it. And they specifically train it on what are called binarized sketches.
Binarized? That sounds kind of intimidating.
Nah, it just means it's black lines on a white background. No shading, no grays, nothing. Just pure, clean line art.
Okay, so no cheating, huh? The AI can't use any sneaky hints from, like, pre-shaded sketches or anything?
Nope, it has to learn from scratch. Just those black lines. And this actually makes things way harder for the AI.
Really? Why is that?
Because coloring just black lines on white is, like, way tougher than if you had some subtle color variations to work with.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like you'd need a super sharp eye to figure out where the colors go when all you have are those lines. So how do they even get around that problem?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. They use this really cool technique called background augmentation. It's kind of like training the AI with blinders on.
Blinders. Okay, you're going to have to explain that one.
So basically, during the training process, they'd randomly remove the background from the reference image. So like sometimes the AI would see the full color character, background and all, but sometimes it would just get the character floating in white space.
Interesting. So you're saying that by like taking away some of the information, they actually made the AI smarter.
Yep. By removing the background, they basically force the AI to focus on the character and its colors without relying on the stuff around it.
Huh. That's kind of counterintuitive, right? You'd think more information would be better.
You'd think so. It's like, imagine you're teaching someone to identify different types of birds. If they only ever see birds in a forest, they might think the trees are part of the bird, right? But if you show them birds against different backgrounds, or even no background at all, they learn to recognize the bird itself.
Oh, that's a good analogy. Okay, so by mixing things up, the AI learns to really zero in on the character's colors no matter what's around it.
Exactly. And that makes it way more accurate when it has to color those black and white sketches where there's like no background to help it out.
That's pretty clever. Okay, so we've talked about how it works, but the real question is, does it actually work? Does this AniDoc thing live up to the hype?
Right. That's the big question. And the researchers definitely did their homework when it came to like testing it out.
I bet they had all sorts of crazy tests. What were they looking at?
Well, they used both hard data and human feedback. So like for the numbers side of things, they used metrics like FID and FVD, which basically measure how close the AI's animations are to, real ones.
Okay, so those are like quantitative measures of how realistic the colors and movements look.
Yep, exactly. And the results were pretty impressive. AniDoc consistently did better than other methods, especially when those sketches were really different from the reference image.
Which makes sense, right? After all those clever tricks they used during training.
Exactly. But they didn't just stop at the numbers. They also had actual humans look at the animations and compare them to, like, ones made with other methods.
Ah, so they brought in the ultimate judges, the human eye. What did people think?
I mean, the results are pretty clear when you look at, I think it's figure 5 in the paper. It's a side-by-side comparison. And you can just see that AniDoc's output is way more detailed. The colors are more accurate. The whole thing is just more polished.
Wow, so it's not just passing some technical tests. It actually looks way better to a human. That's really promising. But hold on. We've been talking about this like it's just for coloring existing animation, right? What about creating new stuff from scratch? Could AniDoc do that too?
That is a great question. And actually, yeah. Remember how we talked about in-betweening? You know, where animators have to draw all those frames between the key poses?
Ugh, yeah, that's super tedious part.
Well, AniDoc can actually generate those in-between frames from just the starting and ending keyframes.
Wait, are you serious? So you could, like, just draw the main poses and let the AI fill in the rest?
Exactly. It's kind of mind-blowing. And it uses something called sparse sketch training. They basically teach the AI to, like, understand the flow of motion between those keyframes.
That could be huge for animators. Just imagine all the time you could save. But, okay, let's be realistic for a sec. This all sounds amazing, but I'm sure there are limitations, right? I mean, AI isn't perfect.
Yeah, of course, no technology is perfect. And the researchers do talk about some of the limitations in the paper.
Like what? Hit me with the bad news.
Well, first of all, AniDoc is still under development, you know. It's not like a finished product you can download and use right now.
Right, that makes sense. It's still pretty cutting edge.
Yeah, and there are some situations where it might struggle. Like, imagine a character is holding a prop that wasn't in the original design. AniDoc would have to, like, guess what color that prop should be, and it might not always get it right.
So it can't just, like, invent new stuff out of thin air.
Yeah.
It still needs to work with what it's learned.
Exactly. And another challenge could be if the character's design changes a lot in the line art, like if they're wearing a completely different outfit. AniDoc might have a hard time adapting.
I guess that makes sense. It's like asking a chef to make a dish they've never seen before, just based on the ingredients they have, right?
Perfect analogy. But even with these limitations, I think it's important to remember how much potential this has. We're talking about something that could, like, totally change how animation is made.
Totally. Even if it's not perfect yet, it's still a huge step forward. And I'm sure the researchers are already working on ways to, make it even better. What kind of things are they looking at for the future of AniDoc?
Well, one thing they're exploring is giving AniDoc the ability to learn from, like, multiple reference images.
Oh, so instead of just having one character design sheet, you could give it a whole bunch of images, like showing the character in different outfits with different props and different environments.
Exactly. And you could even use, like, text prompts to give the AI specific instructions about colors and textures.
Whoa, that would be amazing. Like having a whole team of virtual artists at your fingertips.
It would be a total game changer. And it's not even just about, like, making things faster. It's about opening up all these new creative possibilities. Imagine being able to experiment with tons of different color palettes and styles without having to, like, redraw and recolor everything by hand.
The possibilities are endless. But I'm curious, from your perspective as an artist, what's the most exciting thing about this technology?
That's a great question. I think for me, it's the idea that animators could finally be free to focus on, the things that really matter, like telling stories, developing characters, creating those magical moments.
Like taking away the grunt work so they can really let their creativity shine.
Exactly. And it's not just about making things easier, it's about making things possible that just wouldn't have been before. Think about small studios or independent animators. They could create high-quality, full-color animation without breaking the bank.
They could really democratize the whole industry. Oh, and speaking of democratization, there's something else I wanted to touch on from the paper. They talk about experimenting with different methods for, like, extracting line art from images. Why is that important?
Well, the quality of the line art is super important because, that's what the AI uses to understand the shapes and stuff it needs to color. If the line art is messy or messed up, the final result won't be good.
So they weren't just using any old line art. They actually put some thought into where it came from.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They tried like 4 different approaches, each with its own, strengths and weaknesses. Their default method was specifically designed for anime images to capture those really clean, stylized lines.
Okay, so they had a tool that was like tailor-made for the style they were working with.
Right. But they also wanted to see how AniDoc would perform with more general-purpose line art. So they tried using HED, which is an edge detection method that usually creates thicker, more detailed lines.
Interesting. And could AniDoc handle that more complex style?
It could. It was still able to color the line art effectively.
Okay, so it's not limited to just one specific type of line art.
Nope. And to really push it, they tried PITANET, another edge detection method that creates like super simple line art, almost like a minimalist sketch.
And I bet you're going to tell me that AniDoc aced that test too.
You know it.
Okay.
It worked beautifully. It shows that this AI can handle a ton of different styles.
This thing is amazing. It's like the Swiss Army knife of animation tools.
It really is. And all this experimentation with different line art shows that it's not just about the AI itself, it's about the whole process.
Right. Right, like baking a cake. You need good ingredients and a good recipe.
Exactly. The input data, how the line art is extracted, the reference images you use, all of that affects the final output.
It's a good reminder that AI is just a tool, right? And like any tool, you have to use it the right way to get the best results. But okay, enough about the practical stuff. Gotta know, what about the really mind-blowing stuff? Like, what are the researchers saying about the future of AniDoc? Where do they see this going?
Well, they're already thinking about some pretty wild stuff, like
Yeah.
giving AniDoc a deeper understanding of storytelling, Like, imagine if the AI could actually change the colors based on the mood of a scene.
Whoa, that's crazy. Like using cooler colors if it's a sad moment or warmer colors for a happy one?
Yeah, exactly. It'd be like the AI is a visual storyteller, too. And they're also looking at ways to make AniDoc even more collaborative. Like, imagine multiple artists working on the same project, and the AI keeps everything consistent, no matter what style each artist uses.
That would be incredible, especially for big studios working on those massive projects. Okay, but let's zoom out for a minute. We've been talking a lot about AniDoc, but what does all this mean for AI and creativity as a whole?
That's the really exciting part, right? AniDoc is just one example. We're seeing AI popping up everywhere. In music, writing, even video games. It's like AI isn't just a tool anymore, it's becoming a creative partner.
It's like having a brainstorming buddy who can come up with a million ideas a second. I love it. But I do have one question. With all this talk of AI taking over creative stuff, are human artists going to be out of a job? Is this the end of creativity as we know it?
I get why people would think that, but honestly, I think it's the opposite. I think AI will actually make human creativity even more important.
Really? How so?
Well, think about it. If AI can take care of all the technical, repetitive stuff, that means human artists are free to focus on the stuff AI just can't do, right?
Yeah.
The emotional stuff, the storytelling, the things that make art so powerful.
So it's not about replacing artists, it's about giving them superpowers.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe this whole AI-human partnership will lead to totally new art forms that we can't even imagine yet.
That is an awesome thought. This whole deep dive has been incredible. I feel like we've gotten a glimpse into the future of animation.
It has been a fascinating journey for sure. And I think the biggest takeaway for everyone listening is this. Don't be scared of AI. Embrace it. Explore it. It's got so much potential, not just for animation, but for anyone who wants to create.
That's a perfect way to wrap things up. So to all our listeners out there, if you're feeling inspired, go make something amazing. The future's waiting. And until next time, keep on diving.